After quitting the special forces due to heavy injuries, he turns into a genius gym rat, winning the Mr. Olympia the next year. But the pandemic hits him hard, so hard that he is reincarnated into the body of a young Shaolin monk, in a Murim world, with all his past knowledge. This concludes the intro. Guys, help us reach 69 likes and let's begin. At a large-scale fitness center in Gangnam, Seoul, from inside a small office room for employees, some noise can be heard. A muscular guy, live on YouTube, introduces himself and greets the viewers. He shows the food, declaring he will be doing the honey chicken and kick spear mukbang by viewers' demand. Saying he'll start, he picks up a chicken piece and takes a bite. He exclaims the food is good. This person, named Choi Kang-hyuk, is obsessed with working out. He wasn't always a gym rat, but an incident made him start working out. Once in an accident, he was injured and would face difficulties in walking if he didn't work on his muscles. He got injured while on a special forces mission. Post-accident, he started physical therapy and chiropractor sessions to recover. He even started various exercises like yoga and Pilates, along with following a nutritious diet. After his hard work, he became the nation's best gym rat, or in other words, nation's best fitness trainer. So why is he streaming a mukbang despite being worried it will ruin his muscles? The reason is the pandemic disaster that hit the entire world. Because of the pandemic, he struggled to finance his gyms, so he had no choice but to become a streamer. However, streaming wasn't enough to keep his 5 gyms running. Now Kang-hyuk has finished streaming as he bids his viewers goodbye, requesting them to like and subscribe. The stream turned off, his face turns to horror, and he says he is worried about the next day. For eating the chicken and beer, he wants to work out and burn the calories but is worried it will harm his body. Seeing his life turning this way, he is in disbelief. He decided to take a rest as his doctor had advised him. His doctor had mentioned hair loss due to stress. He has been thunderstruck by the doctor's remarks. The doctor informed Kang-hyuk that his body is on the brink of breakdown because of stress. He had advised Kang-hyuk to cut down on his overwork. Otherwise, the doctor speculated Kang-hyuk would be bald. Hearing he would be bald, Kang-hyuk had been shocked. Kang-hyuk started worrying he would be forever alone as a bald man. So the doctor had prescribed Kang-hyuk some medicine and advised him to rest plenty. Kang-hyuk, sitting down, sighs about what he should do to rest. He claims he is in a dilemma and that he has always worked and exercised. He gets an idea and brings out his phone. He swipes through the screen, mumbling. Then he reveals that as a child, he used to love reading Murim novels. Choi Kang-hyuk had grown up poor under his grandparents' care. Being poor, he used to borrow Murim novels from a nearby bookstore. He used to sit and be happy reading the novels. His grandpa would scold him for going to the bookstore so often. Now scanning through a website, he notices author Gaejeong and says he used to love his novels. Then he notices an unknown Murim novel, wondering if it's new. He says he has never seen it before. The new novel is named Shaolin Monk Chronicles, about a guy who enters the Shaolin Temple to become a martial artist. Choi Kang-hyuk decides to read it and clicks on it. As he begins reading it, his expression changes. He gives a wide smile, claiming the novel is good. He continues reading the novel, which relaxes him. As he relaxes, he wonders when was the last time he ever felt this way. He feels like he is back in his childhood days, enjoying reading novels. After some time, he lies down on his face. Feeling sleepy, he dozes off. It's nighttime, and Choi Kang-hyuk is still sleeping on the floor. A voice calls out a name, Mujin, asking that person to wake up for morning exercise, causing Choi Kang-hyuk to open his eyes. Yelling out morning workout, Choi Kang-hyuk wakes with a start. He is surprised as he notices someone before him. A bald kid, looking worried, shouts that they will be last as everyone has left and they will get yelled at. Meanwhile, Choi Kang-hyuk is bewildered seeing the kid inside his house and noticing his weird hairstyle. Upon being called a kid, the kid states he is older and bigger than Kang-hyuk. Choi Kang-hyuk is baffled hearing the kid claim to be bigger than him. Looking concerned, Choi Kang-hyuk asks the kid if his eyes hurt. He wonders how the kid got inside his house. He then looks around and finds his house different. He checks his hands and puts his hand on his head, looking aghast. Shouting with shock, he stands up. He asks what happened to his hair and where he is. Realizing the kid called him Mujin, he is further confused. He recognizes the name as the protagonist's name from the novel he was reading earlier. He gets further bewildered, questioning the reality. Where is he? Where is his body? And why is he impersonating Mujin? He realizes it must be a dream as he just fell asleep and reveals he had these kinds of dreams when he was young. The kid tells Choi Kang-hyuk they should leave to avoid being late, and Kang-hyuk agrees with a smile. Choi Kang-hyuk, looking at the kid, says he is adorable. Then they both walk out, ready to leave. As Choi Kang-hyuk follows the kid, he he decides to go along with it since it's just a dream. A huge man shouts that those who were late for the first schedule will need to be taught a lesson. He tells Choi Kang-hyuk and the kid to take their places. The kid apologizes to the trainer while Kang-hyuk, impressed, gapes at the dream being so real. The instructor states they will start with the horse stance, making Kang-hyuk wonder if it means squatting. Suddenly his attention goes to the other kids, who are half sitting with both arms raised straight in front. Choi Kang-hyuk is taken aback by the kids in those positions. He thinks the kids will wreck their knees if they continue. The senior monk commands the kids to get into position and start with the horse stance. Hearing the term horse stance, Choi Kang-hyuk wonders if it's similar to squats. He notices the kids, half sitting with their arms straight in front of them. He is shocked at the positions of the kids and is certain his knees will be gone if he trains like that. Choi Kang-hyuk had started doing proper exercise, knowing the importance of lower body and core exercises. Sometimes he would see trainers teaching wrong exercises and think they missed the core of exercising. Now he is seeing this ridiculous exercise in front of his eyes and cringes at the kid's posture, something he can't tolerate. The bald monk shouts that the lower body is the foundation of martial arts. He walks along the row of students, telling them if they can't use their lower body for balance, they won't be able to exert strength properly. Hearing this advice from the monk, Choi Kang-hyuk shows disapproval, noting that the kids don't even have the right posture. Finally, Choi Kang-hyuk can't tolerate this nonsense and gets ready to speak out. Even in his dream, he refuses to stay silent, accusing the kids and the monk of ignorance about exercising. Hearing this, the trainer and others stare at Choi Kang-hyuk, giving death stares. Choi Kang-hyuk is pissed as a kid next to him whispers, asking what's wrong. Meanwhile, the monk scolds Kang-hyuk for daring to shout in the middle of training. He accuses Kang-hyuk of making excuses due to tough training and bellows at him to get into the right position. Kang-hyuk wonders if he can sense the energy from the monk's shouts because of the martial arts novel, but he doesn't fear speaking the truth and shouts back that he only pointed out the wrong thing. He states he won't back down from mere intimidation, comparing it to the behavior of a member in his gym, deeming it easier. The monk, now furious, asks Kang-hyuk if he is implying the training of Shaolin is wrong. However, Kang-hyuk grins, thinking the dream is realistic and deciding to play along. He tells the monk that if they continue training like this, they will injure their knees and suffer later in life. But the monk says it's just an excuse made by the weak ones. However, Kang-hyuk argues back, questioning if martial arts aren't meant for those with weak bodies and minds. The other monk responds, saying Shaolin trains differently. They train martial arts to achieve enlightenment. Kang-hyuk cracks a smile and asks if they are saying that Shaolin is a place where the weak can't achieve enlightenment. But the monk denies that claim, stating they train their bodies harshly to train their minds in the process. He explains further that the human mind is weak, so they are training their minds in advance to endure evil thoughts. Kang-hyuk asks if this means training of minds is needed only when they're younger, making the monk shout at the nonsense he is spouting. Kang-hyuk questions if that isn't what he is saying, as the monk, startled, questions Kang-hyuk's accusation. Kang-hyuk clarifies, saying the monk is implying that to train their minds, it's okay to damage their knees at a young age. He asks the monk if it means that if they suffer while young, they will definitely achieve enlightenment. Hearing this, the other kids start whispering while the monk looks pissed and curses Kang-hyuk. Kang-hyuk then points toward a monk at the back, asking how much he must have gone through to achieve enlightenment at such an old age. The monk is shocked at seeing who Kang-hyuk is pointing at, questioning how he dares, because the one Kang-hyuk pointed at is the first-class disciple, Ha-young. Meanwhile, Ha-young lets out a massive roar, enraged. The loud roar startles even Choi Kang-hyuk. He realizes this is what a first-class disciple is like, sweating with worry. Most of the kids have their ears covered from the loud yell. First-class disciple Ha-young states that the Buddhist martial arts aim to train oneself as a tool for reaching enlightenment. He stands before Kang-hyuk and says their martial arts are different, prompting Kang-hyuk to question what's different. Ha-young explains their martial arts are used to rescue the masses, to protect them from evil demons. To this, Kang-hyuk questions Ha-young if he is saying they are damaging kids' knees so they can protect the masses. Hearing this, Ha-young is unable to believe Kang-hyuk's stubbornness. He fears Kang-hyuk's inaction may influence others negatively but understands constraints on disciplining young monks in Buddhist groups. So he suggests Kang-hyuk prove himself if he thinks the training method of Shaolin is wrong. Kang-hyuk asks Young how he should prove himself. Young suggests Kang-hyuk use his knowledge of the correct training methods. He challenges Kang-hyuk to win against those who have learned by the Shaolin training method. Worried at this challenge, Kang-hyuk asks who he will be against. Ha-young proposes a fair match for Kang-hyuk against someone like himself, calling forth Mugong. He tells Kang Hyuk to prove himself and gives him 7 days to use his methods and train himself. In 7 days, Kang Hyuk will have to spar with Mugong, a wide and tough-looking kid. Kang Hyuk, seeing his opponent, thinks he is in a different weight class, thinking it's unfair. He suspects Ha-young aims to silence him, preventing any complaints after potential defeat by someone who joined at the same time. Kang Hyuk agrees that Ha-young is a horrible senior. Meanwhile, Ha-young looks pleased with himself for creating a situation where Kang Hyuk can't say anything more. Then Kang Hyuk gives a smile, assuring he accepts the challenge while thinking he will easily beat his opponent. Both of them are now anticipating the event after a week. Ha-young turns away, telling Kang Hyuk he has taken the hard path. Then he shouts at the other kids to resume their training. The kid beside Kang Hyuk asks him why he did that and suggests he go and apologize to Monk Ha-young. Suddenly, Ha-young commands the kid, addressing him as Muyul, to get back into position. Meanwhile, the other disciples all stare at Choi Kang Hyuk for his behavior. Kang Hyuk turns and runs away, stating he will see them in 7 days. Choi Kang Hyuk sweats profusely, huffing through squats. An angry voice calls out to him. The enraged monk questions Kang Hyuk's different exercises, but Kang Hyuk claims permission from Monk Ha-young. Ha-young intervenes, allowing Kang Hyuk to continue. Kang Hyuk resumes his exercises, huffing and sweating. He smirks, criticizing the other kid's squatting technique and predicting knee problems. Kang Hyuk voices concern over the kid's young age and potential knee damage. His mocking enrages Monk Ha-young, who struggles to calm down. After 2 hours of training, Kang Hyuk eagerly anticipates his breakfast, unaware of what awaits. He stares down, shocked at his meal portion, just a bowl of rice and a few vegetables. The meal he sees is typical of Buddhist fare, comprising solely vegetables, as the monks adhere to a vegetarian diet. Other kids express gratitude for the meal, but Kang Hyuk remains surprised by the vegetarian offering. Frustrated, he questions the quality of the food. As he smells the food, he wonders how it's possible in his dream. Despite being only vegetables, he admits the smell is quite good. Still, he disregards the pleasant smell, considering it's just vegetables. His anger mounts. Finally, he accuses the meal of being child abuse, prompting others to urge him to eat quietly. Kang Hyuk questions why they're served only vegetables after intense training. The senior monk warns him to stop speaking nonsense while the other monk questions Kang Hyuk's disrespect. The monk, enraged, threatens to teach Kang Hyuk a lesson. Stubbornly, Kang Hyuk insists they deserve more protein for their demanding training and refuses to back down. Determined not to let his morning exercise go to waste, Kang Hyuk stays resolute. Suddenly, someone appears behind Kang Hyuk, startling both him and the senior monks. The senior monk addresses the newcomer as the hall leader, Hyun Mun, who oversees meals. Hyun Mun observes Kang Hyuk, noting his hunger. He suggests getting more food if there isn't enough, but Kang Hyuk disagrees, claiming there's plenty. Hyun Mun offers more side dishes, thinking Kang Hyuk is just a grumbling child, and decides to be generous. Kang Hyuk asks Hyun Mun if there are protein supplements like chicken breasts available. Upon hearing this, Hyun Mun and the other kids are shocked, their mouths wide open. The kid beside Kang Hyuk questions his strange behavior, wondering if something's wrong. Kang Hyuk insists they need to eat protein. He stops abruptly, sensing something different about his muscles and body. Realizing the odd sensations, he contemplates the reality of his situation. Feeling tired while exercising and smelling food, Kang Hyuk questions the possibility of it all in a dream. Deciding he needs to take action, he resolves to play along as a young monk in the Shaolin Temple. Kang Hyuk bows and apologizes, attributing his behavior to hunger. Hyun Mun appears pleased with Kang Hyuk's apology. Kang Hyuk requests beans and mushrooms, causing Hyun Mun to reconsider his initial impression. Hyun Mun thinks Kang Hyuk must be crazy. Kang Hyuk, uncertain if he's in a dream or reality, knows he needs protein. Currently seated in a classroom, Kang Hyuk listens to someone mumbling, feeling bored studying Buddhist scriptures after breakfast and training. He considers the possibility of being trapped in the world of a novel and wonders how to return home. A thought strikes him: if he's in a novel, can he leave after the story concludes? If in the novel, Kang Hyuk realizes it's not dire as Mu Jin, the protagonist, is talented, and the Shaolin Temple is strong among the Orthodox Alliance. Suddenly, Kang Hyuk yells as ink splatters in his textbook. He looks around to find every student staring at him. He believes he's been marked by them all. If that's true, he resolves to win the spar and gain acknowledgement for his training methods from all of them. Later, Hyun Mun complains about Kang Hyuk to first-class disciple Ha-young, who apologizes on Kang Hyuk's behalf. Hyun-mon asks Hae-young for his opinion on Kang Hyuk, referring to him as Mu-jin, the novel's antagonist. Hae-young mentions giving Kang Hyuk 7 days until he spars with Mu-gung. Hyun-mon laughs, acknowledging the wisdom in Hae-young's decision, noting they can't directly punish a disciple for misbehaving. He explains that Kang Hyuk's opponent, Mu-gung, is one of the most competent disciples admitted that year. In the Shaolin Temple, hundreds of new disciples are recruited annually, but most drop out due to harsh training. Some only learn basic martial arts and join the outer sect, with only 10% staying till the end. First-class elders or disciples usually don't know the names of new monks, but Mu-gung's case is rare. Senior monk Hae-young is confident that Mu-gung will teach Kang Hyuk a lesson. 2 pairs of feet, each belonging to Choi Kang Hyuk and Mu-gung, walk towards each other, ready for their spar as 7 days have passed. First-class disciple, Hae-young, instructs both of them to get ready for the spar. A monk kid, staring at Choi Kang Hyuk, asks what he is doing. Choi Kang Hyuk replies that he is stretching. The kid, looking puzzled, asks what it is, and Kang Hyuk explains it's the tendons extension technique in martial arts terms. Stretching is done before the actual exercise to help prepare muscles and tendons. Various stretching and posture methods are available which increase the flexibility of muscles. Choi Kang Hyuk suggests to the kid that he can try doing the stretching if he is curious. The kid starts stretching his legs, wondering what he is doing and what's the strange posture. He asks Kang Hyuk if all he needs is to put his legs in such a position, and Kang Hyuk praises him, saying he is doing well. Meanwhile, other kids are all marveling at Mu-gung's training, impressed with his punches. Mu-gung's face is concentrated as he practices his punches. The kids are praising that he is incredible, claiming his punches are great. Choi Kang Hyuk worries about getting hit by Mu-gung and wonders how to defeat him with just a week of training. He questions himself how he can beat Mu-gung. Then an idea comes to him, and he decides to use that particular technique. Choi Kang Hyuk and Mu-gung are both staring at each other, both ready for the spar. Hae-young, looking at Kang Hyuk's determined face, realizes he wasn't making excuses to escape training. He acknowledges that Choi Kang Hyuk used his own methods to train, not listening to his instructions. And he recalls when Kang Hyuk had used the tree to train himself, claiming to practice a method to subdue Mu-gung in an instant. The other kid had asked Choi Kang Hyuk why he kept rubbing against the tree. Hae-young now stares at Mu-gung, confident he will be able to teach Kang Hyuk a lesson. Meanwhile, Mu-gung looks pleased that monk Hae-young is looking at him. He is also determined to reach higher by trampling on Kang Hyuk. Choi Kang Hyuk is stretching his muscles and his back. He asks if they can start the spar immediately. Monk Hae-young thinks Kang Hyuk is trying to act tough, and he instructs the two of them to step forward. Mu-gung is looking forward to trying his consecutive punches on Kang Hyuk, which he has trained for 3 months. With Hae-young's command, the spar begins, and without delay, Kang Hyuk charges. Seeing this, both Hae-young and Mu-gung are taken aback. Kang Hyuk closes on Mu-gung, who aims a punch in response. But swiftly, Kang Hyuk dodges the punch. The spectators are bewildered. Kang Hyuk then grabs hold of Mu-gung's leg, claiming he can't use modern martial arts on a child. He thinks if he uses the techniques he knows, he might accidentally kill Mu-gung, so he uses an alternative. The alternate technique is something even kids like Mu-jin can endure, which is a tackle. So, grabbing Mu-gung's leg, Kang Hyuk tackles him to the ground. Within just a second after the spar started, Kang Hyuk managed to subdue Mu-gung with the armbar technique. The senior monks are all shocked, shouting at Mu-gung to get out of the lock and endure it. The other kids are shaken up seeing Mu-gung taken down so quickly. Mu-gung has been subdued, judging by the expression on his face. He is struggling to get free, bewildered at Kang Hyuk's technique holding him pinned down. Seeing Mu-gung struggling, the second-class disciples shout at him, giving him all kinds of advice. Despite their lack of knowledge about the armbar technique, after 10 years of martial arts training, they recognize the painful position Mu-gung is in. Meanwhile, Mu-gung is still struggling to free himself, but Kang Hyuk suggests surrendering, warning that resisting will break his arm. But the senior monks are urging Mu-gung to get up and fight back. Kang Hyuk is advising Mu-gung to give up, or his arm will be dislocated or broken, warning that he will end up crippled if something goes wrong. But Mu-gung is still not giving up, and Kang Hyuk continues to tell him to give up. The pain intensifies, and Mu-gung remains stubborn. After a while, Mu-gung gives a loud yell. Hearing this yell, Kang Hyuk, looking worried, lets go of Mu-gung's arm. The spectating senior monks call off monk Hae-young and ask him what they should do next. Kang Hyuk is massaging Mu-gung's arm while Mu-gung weeps, and Kang Hyuk asks why they made 2 children fight. And so, the victor of the sparring is declared, Choi Kang Hyuk. Chain punch is one of the 8 extremities fist. It utilizes the fist, elbow, and shoulder as the main weapons, allowing people to defeat opponents in short range. It is known for being very powerful, and Mu Gung has mastered it most out of all the young monks. Even the second-class disciples were impressed with his chain punch. However, this morning, his chain punch lost without even proper resistance to a strange young monk with weird techniques. Choi Kang-hyuk is comforting Mu Gung, who is crying due to his loss and claiming it's unfair. Mu Gung says Kang-hyuk charged as soon as he began and attacked him with a strange technique. He boasts he can win any fair fight, and Kang-hyuk, seeing his confidence, smiles and agrees. The second-class disciples are looking at Kang-hyuk and Mu Gung. One of them says that Mu Gung does have a point, causing Kang-hyuk to turn back to see who spoke. The second-class monk says the spar was meant for Shaolin's martial arts, but Kang-hyuk broke the rule with an unknown technique. Kang-hyuk is taken aback by this sudden accusation. The senior monk asks Kang-hyuk why he didn't use the chain punch. Kang-hyuk explains using the chain punch would have prolonged the fight and caused injuries to both of them. Kang-hyuk claims he subdued Mu Gung without harm, but the senior shouts it's nonsense since he didn't use Shaolin techniques. Kang-hyuk shouts back, telling the senior monk he is the one talking nonsense. Despite their rage, the senior monks are bewildered to see Shaolin's chain punch easily defeated by an untrained kid. And the monk admits that they are refusing to acknowledge that Mu Gung did actually lose. He gives a worried look, thinking that people might doubt their Shaolin's martial arts. Or worst case scenario, all the new disciples might leave Shaolin. The second-class disciples look at Ha-young, wondering what they should do next, but they are startled to see Ha-young actually smiling. Ha-young then calls out to Kang-hyuk. He asks him if he used that technique to take down Mu Gung without harming him, and Kang-hyuk agrees. Ha-young gives a smile and tells Kang-hyuk he stayed true to the essence of Shaolin, declaring him the winner of the duel. Hearing this, all the other disciples are astounded. Even Kang-hyuk is surprised to see Ha-young acknowledge his victory. Ha-young tells Kang-hyuk his skill was effective because his opponent's level was of a loser's. He explains that the ultimate reason they learn martial arts is to take down evil and demonic heads. He offers to show Kang-hyuk the true essence of Shaolin's martial arts. Ha-young pulls back his sleeve and says that the real power of Shaolin can take down evil demonic heads, ordering for a boulder to be brought out. A moment later, 2 disciples come out, carrying a huge boulder and drop it down. Seeing such a big boulder, Kang-hyuk wonders if Ha-young will really destroy it with his fist. Ha-young walks towards the boulder, telling the disciples to watch closely the true power of the chain punch they are all learning. Then he takes a deep breath and prepares a powerful punch, and he strikes the boulder with all his might. His powerful punch causes the boulder to shatter into numerous pieces and rubble. The disciples witnessing this all give impressed looks. They marvel at seeing the boulder blown into pieces and express their joy, thinking they will be able to do that once they train hard. Meanwhile, Kang-hyuk's mouth is wide open from the shock. He then cracks into a smile, claiming that's the real martial arts. Ha-young says martial arts is different. It's just one impact that is enough to break open a mountain. He adds that just one swing of swords can bring down hundreds of enemies, and one punch can explode the enemy. Hearing the word explode, Kang-hyuk is taken aback. He questions Ha-young if he hadn't said that martial arts are to overpower enemies without harming them. Ha-young, looking puzzled, agrees. Kang-hyuk points to the ground and tells Ha-young he broke the boulder into pieces. Ha-young and all the disciples are speechless at this. Ha-young stammers, unable to say anything. A strange silence takes over the training hall once again. Around the morning that day, Ha-young had told Hyun-sung, who was in charge of education, all about Kang-hyuk's victory with just one move. Ha-young says that Kang-hyuk definitely isn't an ordinary child. He adds that Kang-hyuk is arrogant, but he has been training the chain punch hardest out of all young monks. Hyun-sung asks Ha-young if he is worried Kang-hyuk is training the chain punch to try to figure out its fatal weak points, and Ha-young agrees with this. Ha-young then suggests that Kang-hyuk might be a spy of an unorthodox alliance or perhaps the demonic cult. The first-class disciple, Ha-young, believes Choi Kang-hyuk is a spy, but Hyun-mun disagrees, saying a spy wouldn't be so eye-catching, while Ha-young suggests it might be reverse psychology. Hyun-mun says they shouldn't worry about Kang-hyuk and advises they observe him to decide if he is a spy or just unique. Suddenly, Hyun-mun suggests Kang-hyuk might be from a martial family. Ha-young thinks this makes sense and that Kang-hyuk might have learned the strange training exercises from his family. Hyun-mun suggests Kang-hyuk may aim to prove himself to his father, admitting his father's teachings might surpass Shaolin's. He thinks Kang-hyuk will become more arrogant after defeating Mu Gung and wonders what to do about him. After some thought, he decides they should leave Kanghyuk to Biob Gang. Hyung asks if he means the one in the discipline court. Hyunmon says Biob Gang has volunteered to join the Arhat Hall, and Hyung agrees using Biob Gang is a good idea. A few monk disciples, all looking pleased with the day's work, head to go sleep. The first monk sees someone and stops. His eyes widen in shock, and he turns to the others, suggesting they take another path. The others also peek to see what the scared monk had seen. They see a muscular monk training up ahead, and one asks what he is doing there. The one training is Biob Gang, and the monk disciples are shocked to see him there. One monk questions Biob Gang's presence here, usually training at the grounds, while another notes he's practicing the horse stance. One suggests Biob Gang might train late to avoid rest, calling him tenacious. The three disciples then discuss Biob Gang, revealing he is really tenacious and is called the Mad Dog. One smiles, saying the Mad Dog of the disciple court, Rule's dog, is fitting for him. His face turns to shock when the other disciple reminds him that Biob Gang is going to be in the Arhat Hall. They express disbelief, saying they thought Biob would stay in the discipline court and hate the idea of living with him in Arhat Hall. Among the second-class disciples, Biob Gang is quite influential and has maintained relationships with the third-class disciples of Shaolin. According to the monks, Biob plans to join all halls and courts to learn about Shaolin and return to the discipline court. Biob Gang, the protector of rules, has worked hard to be a role model, believing he must follow the rules first to make others do so. He spends more time in basic training than others, without much rest, and his knees have undergone brutal training. His knees are so damaged that he feels pain even while walking unless he uses internal energy, but he doesn't care. Basic training is both physical and mental, and Biob considers the pain part of training his mind. He has just finished practicing horse stance for more than 30 minutes. He declares that Choi Kanghyuk is a problem child but a promising disciple of the Arhat Hall. He is confident he will teach Choi Kanghyuk the correct mindset a Shaolin disciple must have. The other disciples are shocked to see Biob Gang. They all stare at him and ask what he is doing there. Biob Gang explains that he will be joining Arhat Hall. He says he is looking forward to working with the disciples. With a smile, Choi Kanghyuk, seeing Biob's ripped body, is impressed, thinking he looks like a soldier. Meanwhile, the second-class disciples are unhappy with Biob joining them. Even the third-class disciples start whispering, showing disapproval of Biob. Choi Kanghyuk notices the disciples' discontent with Biob. He realizes Biob must be the second-class disciples' disciplinary Biob Gang. Biob Gang announces they are starting the morning training. The first training is horse stance. Biob Gang believes that to guide someone, their exact problem needs to be identified. He walks near Kanghyuk during training and decides he needs to know the root of the problem to fix it. He notices Kanghyuk's legs are spread wider than his shoulders and a few other incorrect postures. He tries to mimic Kanghyuk's posture. He also practices Kanghyuk's breathing pattern and continues his exercise, finding no difference. He realizes he feels the same pain when doing the horse stance and wonders if it's Kanghyuk's trick to escape training. He decides to teach Kanghyuk a lesson, and at that moment, Kanghyuk comments that he is doing the exercise wrong. Biob asks what he means, and Choi Kanghyuk tells him his posture is wrong. Biob asks what is wrong. Choi Kanghyuk gives an irritated look, realizing he needs to teach Biob everything from the start. Kanghyuk doesn't know why Biob is trying to copy him, but he can hear Biob's knees popping when he bends them. He realizes Biob's knees are damaged and, as a trainer, is unable to ignore it. Kanghyuk knows that Biob is the disciplinary master, so he believes it would be beneficial to have him on his side. With a grin, he decides to make his life easier by winning Biob's trust as Biob asks him what he meant by wrong. He warns Biob that following his steps with a bad knee would harm rather than help, asking if he can trust and follow his guidance. He moves closer to a puzzled Biob, praising him for his flexible body. He explains to Biob that the technique is called the tendons extension technique, which loosens the muscles in one's knees. Kanghyuk explains that the warm-up before exercise will ease the strain on Biob's knees, which he confirms feeling the difference in. Kanghyuk instructs Biob to do the movement with 30-second intervals and to do it 3 times. He reminds Biob that he has already done it once and, pressing on his knee, asks if he feels better. Seeing the pained look on his face, Kanghyuk thinks Biob's training has put a lot of pressure on his knees, damaging them. Meanwhile, Biob reveals that at first, he felt unbearable pain, but now he is feeling relieved and refreshed. Kanghyuk tells Biob he should now start the second round and urges him to get up. Biob tries to say something, but Kanghyuk pushes him from behind, stating that training waits for no man. Seeing Kanghyuk's determination, Biob wonders what kind of child he is. The other disciples see Biob and Kanghyuk working together and question what Biob is doing with the kid. Biob Gang, also known as Rules Fanatic and nicknamed Mad Dog, is a stickler for rules. He has been intimidating the second-class disciples since their arrival at the Shaolin Temple. However, at this moment, Biab is surprisingly friendly, training with a new monk. As they train, Choi Kang-hyuk suggests they take a break and repeat the posture 15 times, to which Biab agrees. Biab is currently learning squats. Choi Kang-hyuk advises him to slightly bend his knees to reduce pressure, which Biab agrees to. Kang-hyuk smiles and summarizes the exercise sequence for Biab. He explains that Biab should sit down slowly after bending his knees slightly. When sitting down, Biab should avoid exerting force from his knees but rather from his thighs and butt. Similarly, when standing up, Biab should only use strength from his thighs and butt. Biab complies. Kang-hyuk asks about his muscles. Biab confirms they're fine, and Kang-hyuk suggests a brief rest. Biab Gang marvels as he notices he's feeling less pain. After completing 3 rounds of the exercise, Kang-hyuk suggests they move on to his calves. Kang-hyuk, having been a trainer for a long time, understands that those with fierce appearances are often weak to friendly people. He commends Biab for quickly correcting his posture, and Biab laughs, mentioning he has been at the Shaolin Temple for 18 years. Meanwhile, the second-class disciples wonder what has gotten into Biab, speculating he may have gone crazy. First-class disciple Hae-young looks grim, trying to calm himself down as his blood pressure rises. Eventually, he decides to ignore the two of them for the time being. After some time, the kids head to breakfast. Kang-hyuk advises Biab to use the technique he taught for training his lower body from then on. Biab Gang, realizing Kang-hyuk's instructions are useful, decides to follow them wholeheartedly, expressing understanding. He praises Kang-hyuk, acknowledging his incredible techniques. He finds both techniques taught by Kang-hyuk effective. He no longer experiences knee pain and feels his lower body muscles stretching. He then questions Kang-hyuk if he was taught those techniques by his family, puzzling him. He suggests that since Kang-hyuk's techniques are very effective, he must come from an extraordinary family. Biab mentions hearing about Kang-hyuk's family techniques, leading Kang-hyuk to realize the misunderstanding. Choi Kang-hyuk admits he did behave strangely back then and now looks relieved hearing he won't have to explain himself. So he lies that his family taught him the techniques as Biab laughs, saying the techniques are magnificent. Biab praises the knee exercise and suggests it will be great if Kang-hyuk's Shaolin training improves as well, offering advice. Kang-hyuk acknowledges the advice, saying he will remember it, before being called away by a monk kid. Saying he is done, Kang-hyuk follows the kid after asking Biab for permission. Biab watches Kang-hyuk walk away. Suddenly, Hae-young appears behind him. Startled, Biab swiftly turns around, apologizing to Hae-young for being unsightly. Biab insists on experiencing things firsthand to understand his adversaries, prompting Hae-young to ask for his insights afterward. After analyzing, Biab believes Kang-hyuk comes from a family of physicians, not martial artists. Hearing this, Hae-young asks him to explain his reasoning. Biab reveals his knee's poor condition from rigorous training, prompting Hae-young to question why he hadn't mentioned it earlier. Biab responds that he didn't want to worry others, especially his juniors, or appear weak. Despite years of training with him, his juniors didn't notice his knee condition, unlike Choi Kang-hyuk, who immediately did. Furthermore, he elucidates that Choi Kang-hyuk introduced exercises that alleviated strain on his knees. Upon hearing this, Hae-young considers if Kang-hyuk is from a family of physicians, expressing concern about the impact of such talent on Shaolin's training. Biab reassures Hae-young, promising to guide Choi Kang-hyuk onto the right path. Biab emphasizes that children listen better to adults they're close to, choosing a nurturing approach to build rapport with Kang-hyuk and introduce Shaolin's training gradually. After a moment of contemplation, Hae-young concurs with Biab's proposal, advocating for a patient approach. Sometime later, it's time for the afternoon training session. Choi Kang-hyuk appears solemn. He grapples with the demanding schedule, including Buddhist lessons immediately after breakfast, speculating whether his youth contributes to the challenge. At the class's front, Monk Hae-young declares the kids have mastered the chain punch and will advance to the next training phase. He stresses the importance of mastering both internal and external energy, stating that the children will now focus on mastering their internal energy. Selecting 2 second-class disciples, he calls upon them to demonstrate. As Hae-young instructs the disciples to assume the lotus position, Choi Kang-hyuk wonders about its significance. The disciples seat themselves on the ground, legs crossed. Choi Kang-hyuk comprehends the lotus posture as Hae-young directs the disciples to close their eyes and focus on their breath. Hae-young guides the disciples to breathe deeply, directing the air through their nostrils and into their energy core. He encourages them to continue breathing until reaching their energy core. Meanwhile, Choi Kang-hyuk eagerly anticipates learning the martial arts he has long dreamed of. Following the demonstration, Ha-young commands the kids to adopt the lotus position. Not only Choi Kang-hyuk but the other kid monks are also eager for the new lesson after practicing the chain punch for so long. The kid monks embark on learning the ancient martial arts of Shaolin, each aspiring to emulate monk Ha-young's strength. All eyes fixed on Ha-young's instructions, the kid monks diligently follow his guidance. Suddenly, with his eyes still closed, Choi Kang-hyuk senses an unfamiliar aspect to the training. His eyes closed, Choi Kang-hyuk senses something strange about the training. He recognizes the breathing technique but finds it distinct from Shaolin's methods and novels. He wonders if they won't be taught the chance for the energy cultivation techniques and things like yin and yang, but he lets go of the doubts thinking there might be reasons behind it. 1 hour later, Choi Kang-hyuk has been tackling all the training methods by giving his best to follow the instructions. It's all because he is excited to get some inner energy and be able to perform cool things. He thinks he will be able to split a mountain and fly in the skies from obtaining his inner energy. He is happy to learn the inner energy cultivation technique, which is the epitome of Muram novels. After a moment, Ha-young tells the kid monks to open their eyes. Ha-young explains that the kids learned a basic breathing method to sense and gather energy within their bodies. He instructs them to practice the energy cultivation technique whenever they are free so they can feel the energy. Choi Kang-hyuk is disappointed to learn they'll start with basic breathing techniques instead of the inner energy cultivation he hoped for. He realizes he must sense energy first to attain inner energy as someone hands him a book. Taking the book, Choi Kang-hyuk asks what is it as Ha-young says that the book has images of humans' meridians, and he advises the kids to focus on memorizing the main meridians for energy circulation instead of the entire book. Choi Kang-hyuk gives an excited look hearing about meridians. Meridians are the passageways where the energy and inner energy flows within, so it's necessary to understand them. Ha-young calls forward a disciple saying they will teach the kids the names and locations of meridians. Choi Kang-hyuk opens his book and looks at the figure of the meridians, deciding he will memorize it all. Later that evening, as Choi Kang-hyuk walks, he remembers Ha-young's directive to memorize the meridians and practice energy cultivation, preceding the learning of Shaolin's enlightenment technique. He thinks about trying some moves after mastering the energy cultivation technique, and notices someone while walking. It's Biob Gang, and seeing him, Choi Kang-hyuk asks what he is doing. Biob laughs, saying his knees don't hurt with the new exercise techniques and that he is trying to train more. Choi Kang-hyuk looks horrified upon hearing Biob's joints crack and reminds him the exercises are meant to protect and recover his knees. But Biob claims that iron gets stronger the more it's struck and flexes his muscles. Choi Kang-hyuk argues back that iron only becomes stronger if beaten in the correct manner and it breaks if overdone. Then he tells Biob to take a seat down. When Biob is on the ground, Choi Kang-hyuk presses on his legs, offering to apply pressure to relieve his pain. As he presses on Biob's legs, Biob gives a pained expression, and Choi Kang-hyuk tells him to speak if it hurts a lot. While massaging the injured knees, Choi Kang-hyuk is reminded of his past. Long ago, he was in the special forces. His body got severely injured when he tried to train more despite being already injured. And while climbing a hill, he had lost balance and fallen down and couldn't proceed with the mission. In the end, he was carried away and forced to retire from the service. After that incident, he lived each day without any energy. And now when he looks at Biob, he sees a reflection of himself from the past. He reminds Biob that if he gets injured, only he will suffer and no one will take responsibility, and asks him to treasure his body. He wonders if he is lecturing Biob as Biob calls him. Biob tells Choi Kang-hyuk that Shaolin doesn't abandon their disciples just because their bodies are in bad shape. He cracks a smile, assuring that nobody will get abandoned here regardless of what happens. Choi Kang-hyuk stares silently and gives a smile, saying he believes Biob, while Biob tells him to trust him in the ways of Shaolin. Biob asks Choi Kang-hyuk where he's headed. He replies he's going to his room to practice the energy circulation technique. Biob asks why Choi Kang-hyuk needs to practice the technique, since as a physician's family member, he should already read the flow of energy. Choi Kang-hyuk realizes he misspoke and tries to make an excuse, saying he didn't learn it due to some personal issues at home. Biob then suggests Choi Kang-hyuk he can practice the energy circulation technique right there. He says he also wants to circulate his energy after completing his training and offers Choi Kang-hyuk they do it together. He says Choi Kang-hyuk might be able to sense energy more easily if he sees others circulating their energy. Hearing this offer, Choi Kang-hyuk thinks it's a good idea, so he gets into the lotus position, hoping to learn about the energy after seeing Biob use it in front of him. Getting into the position, he decides to give it a try and says he is ready as Biob laughs and starts circulating his energy. Biob tells Choi Kang-hyuk to pay close attention and learn from what he can see, and he closes his eyes and takes in long breaths as Choi Kang-hyuk watches this. Choi Kang-hyuk marvels seeing the air surrounding Biob different and realizes that's the real energy circulation. He thinks he should take the chance to spot the differences in himself and Biob. Suddenly he notices something surrounding Biob's body which he didn't see when practicing himself. Looking astounded, Choi Kang-hyuk wonders if what he is seeing is the thing they have been talking about, the real energy. With Biob gains instructions, Choi Kang-hyuk is practicing the energy circulation technique. First, Kang-hyuk gathers all the evil energy within him and breathes it out. He breathes in as deeply as he can. He absorbs the pure energy of nature until it reaches his energy core. While doing all this, Kang-hyuk finds the difference between himself and Biob. His breathing technique, posture, and method of absorbing energy are all flawed. So he starts again from the beginning, breathing in, storing the energy, and imagining the flow of energy. Finally, Kang-hyuk feels the spiritual energy glowing above his stomach. However, he is disappointed to see the energy in such a small amount. But he thinks about truffle chips, which contain only 0.00000001% truffle, and sees his small energy as a success. Regaining his confidence, Biob opens his eyes and, staring at Kang-hyuk, marvels at him for already feeling the energy. He becomes certain that Kang-hyuk will become a pillar that holds up the 1,000-year history of Shaolin. Kang-hyuk has finally gotten a grasp on how to sense and store the energy. He has been practicing the breathing technique a lot, so it's stable now. But suddenly he feels cold and, startled, opens his eyes. He realizes it's already nighttime and sees Biob standing before him, smiling at seeing him finally open his eyes. Kang-hyuk apologizes for losing track of time, but Biob tells him not to worry and suggests he return quickly. Before leaving, Kang-hyuk joins his hands and bows, thanking Biob for instructing him. Biob reminds Kang-hyuk he can now learn the enlightenment cultivation technique, and Kang-hyuk asks if he needs to memorize all the meridians. Biob asks if Kang-hyuk, being from a physician family, shouldn't already know, and Kang-hyuk quickly says he was just joking. Then Biob turns around, saying the joke was unnecessary, and tells Kang-hyuk to go back as it's late. Kang-hyuk is annoyed with the stupid physician family setting and decides to memorize all of the meridians in a day. The next day's morning training, the first class disciple, Ha-young, asks the disciples to step forward if they can sense energy and have memorized the meridians. Choi Kang-hyuk, yawning, reveals he has memorized all the meridians overnight and thinks it's good to step forward. But seeing a few other kids step forward, Choi Kang-hyuk is surprised. He wonders if sensing the energy is that simple. Ha-young then tells the ones who stepped forward that he will explain the next step. He shows the kids a book, claiming it's the basics of the Shaolin cultivation technique and the foundation of their techniques. He opens the book and tells them it won't take long to learn the basics, saying he will teach them starting from simple steps. He starts reading from the book while the kids all appear impressed. Meanwhile, a kid who didn't step forward, shocked, asks if the three of them really sensed energy and memorized the meridians in a day. After a moment, the three kids, including Kang-hyuk, walk back to their positions. The monk kid, impressed, asks Kang-hyuk how he learned everything in a day. Kang-hyuk responds it was basic and not complicated. He begins explaining the process to the other kid, who gives a puzzled expression, unable to understand anything. Seeing the kid's blank look, Kang-hyuk asks him if he didn't understand anything, to which the kid says, "Not a thing." So Kang-hyuk tells the kid he will be able to learn it soon, suggesting he focus on breathing. Kang-hyuk continues memorizing the meridians and sequences until he masters them, along with the basic Shaolin martial arts. In meditation, Kang-hyuk feels the energy filling up faster, increasing from 0.00001 to 0.0001. He is very excited to be able to learn the inner energy he had read about in novels and now can feel himself growing. He thinks this is what true martial arts is and what it's like to be a protagonist. In the upcoming days, Kang-hyuk's training progressed smoothly. One day, while circulating his energy, someone calls Kang-hyuk from behind. He turns around and asks Muyul, the other kid, where he had gone. Muyul seems to be huffing and carrying another kid over his shoulders. Seeing this, Kang-hyuk looks annoyed. Muyul asks Kang-hyuk what he is doing, and Kang-hyuk says he is trying to figure something out. Muyul assures him that the one he is carrying isn't dead and is fine. He says the kid's name is Mu-kyung, who joined Shaolin earlier than him, while Kang-hyuk asks why he is carrying him around. Muyul says he is trying to get Mu-kyung up, but he is completely passed out. Kang Hyuk tells Mu Yul to wait and walks behind him towards Mu Kyung. He gets on his knees, inspects the passed out body, and notices the dirt and a bruise on him. Then he guesses someone might have beaten Mu Kyung up. He says there are footprints on his body and lots of bruises as well. He also thinks the kid's name, Mu Kyung, sounds a little familiar. Mu Kyung was a tall, scrawny kid who looked like a scarecrow with sunken cheeks. Once Kang Hyuk had passed him, this is the image he remembered. But now the memory of Mu Kyung is something else. Kang Hyuk is sure he has heard the name somewhere, though he can't recognize the face, and tries to recall it. After thinking for a moment, he still can't recall and lets it go. Mu Yul asks Kang Hyuk if he knows who beat up Mu Kyung. Kang Hyuk says he has no idea, though he thinks he might have some idea. He tells Mu Yul he knows someone who might know. Since Mu Kyung had joined before Mu Yul, Kang Hyuk suggests they should ask someone who joined earlier than Mu Kyung. Kang Hyuk asks Mu Yul if he remembers the person with whom he sparred earlier. A while later, Mu Gung, who is sweating after exercising, gives an annoyed look and asks what it is to someone in front of him. Kang Hyuk and Mu Yul are both looking at Mu Gung, while Mu Yul still has Mu Kyung on his shoulders.